All right, ladies and gentlemen, from where we left off yesterday, we should have pretty much finished up the eyes. We have the two lids on there. You can see my eyes are kind of finished looking. I built up the eyebrows yesterday, which sort of creates that fold, that crease over the top lid. So that's all set up and ready to go. And really what I want to do today is I want to start setting up for the mouth. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab some clay. You can grab some used clay, or you can grab another two sort of pieces over here and start blending them and mushing them together. What I'm going to do is continually blend and smooth them out together, sort of push them down. This time what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a really thin sort of piece, all right, thinner than usual, or wider than usual, so I'm sort of spreading this out this way, not spreading it out. I'm not trying to make it longer this way. I'm trying to make it wider. And this thin piece is really just as a base for underneath the mouth. All right, so really all I'm trying to do, and I pre-made this one over here to save a little time, is I'm trying to make a thin piece just to cover up the foil really over here. I know we didn't want to work too thin, but at this juncture all I really want is to try to create a base to build off of top. And we don't want that little piece that I'm adding, we don't want to make this thicker this way too much, because we are going to add some thickness with the rest of the mouth. So that thin piece that I just stretched out, it's really only two pieces of clay, and really all I want to do is kind of press it into the foil so it's kind of stuck into the foil. And then as usual, when I sort of put two pieces together, I want to sort of weld them together, meld them together, so I will be sort of blending that together with my finger and smoothing it out. We're going to start working on the mouth because I think it's kind of easier to work on that area without the nose being there. So today's sculpture is going to end up looking a little bit, if you're a Harry Potter fan like Voldemort, we're going to have no nose, but don't worry, we're going to add the nose after the fact. Now, the biggest decision we have to make again is, well, besides trying to make sure that I kind of keep things symmetrical, is where am I going to put the mouth? Now, I told you I'm sort of working on the idea of making it sort of like a baby's face, which all the features of the face tend to be kind of constricted and smushed down, so I'll have really big eyes, a small nose, and a small mouth, but the placement of where to put it is kind of in question. So what I want to do is I'm going to use my quarter again. I'm going to place the quarter so like the edge of that quarter is really like right on the bridge of the nose, so it's right kind of like where my eye muscles, eye tear ducts are, and that's going to kind of be a space saver for where the nose is going to be. And then what I want to do is I'm going to take a dime. We have our change around here. My dime, I'm going to kind of set it up so it's slightly overlapping that quarter just a little bit. You can try to do exactly what I'm doing, and that's going to give you, probably not enough that you cover up the face of old George Washington if you're doing it exactly like I am. What we want to do is we want to kind of decide that the mouth should be somewhere in the lower half of that dime. It doesn't make a difference if it's a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but we don't want to make the mouth up here, and we don't want to make the mouth all the way down there. So what I'm going to do is I've got the two of those things together. You can see how I have the dime and the quarter there. And let me just get us in focus again. And what I'm doing is sort of right about the halfway point of that dime, maybe a little bit lower. I'm just making a mark. And that's my way of kind of measuring out where approximately I want to put the mouth. That way I know I'll have enough space for my nose, and I'll be able to work around some of the other things. So just very lightly with my sort of wooden tool, I've created a little bit of line. Now, how wide do I want to make this mouth? I want to kind of stick to about that nickel like we used for the eyes. I'm going to make the mouth just about as same width. So what I'm going to do is kind of make sure that my little mark is not only the width of a nickel, but that it's centered. So take some time, don't just make a line and put it in there. And if you do this right now, you probably have something that looks a little bit like an alien, right? One of those little gray aliens, which is probably the right thing. So again, about the width of a nickel. It could be a little bit wider. You don't want to make it much smaller because it's going to be harder to work with. And again, when we're sculpting on this face, we are sculpting a little bit smaller than what we practiced. All right, so again, symmetrical. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to another couple strips of clay over here. You can always reuse clay. I'm going to sort of meld these two together. Again, smooth them out with my finger. Get rid of that sort of line in between them, make it nice one piece, and try not to make this thing too thin. Don't start pressing it down just yet. We got one side going over here, smoothed out. I'm gonna smooth out the top end. Try to keep all of it relatively even, crack free, and then I'll do the back side as well. This is going to be the basis, the start of my upper lip. Right. So what we're going to do is blend that all together, smooth it out, take a look, and again, I'm just going to make this just a little bit thinner. Just a little bit thinner. All right, so that's going to kind of serve as my upper lip. Okay. I'm going to see something like that. All right, my upper lip. All right, now what I want to do is do a little bit better job of blending this together before I move on to the next part of it. Let me really get all those little cracks and crevices done. Make sure it's nice and even. It's going to be longer than I need, which is totally fine. I'll kind of get rid of some of that in a minute. But what I want to do is, again, kind of decide on a point of this where this sort of, I'm going to make the middle. And you're going to go over there, find that middle, and I'm going to do it with my thumbs. I'm just going to start pressing up a little bit to kind of make that little indent. You see how I'm starting to make a little bump? That's going to be the center of the mouth. So again, I'm going to sort of squeeze in my fingers over there and trying to keep the rest of this even, but trying to bend this up a little bit so I get that little, you know, I guess mustache looking kind of shape, a little sort of ridge thing, and that little tiny bump that's sticking out on the bottom, that's going to be the center of the lips. And you know, I can kind of push this up a little bit to kind of give the lips a little bit more form, but this little piece that I'm working on right now is going to be that upper lip. And from here, I want to kind of really sculpt that lip to exactly the way I want it to look before I start pressing it down into my clay. And what I'm going to do on the outside is I'm going to sort of curl up the edges a little bit. We're going to smear a lot of that into this thing and meld it into one another, but I do want to kind of get that there. So I'm sort of like fitting it onto the piece now, just seeing how it looks, and if I need to, again, sort of just kind of pressing that up a little bit more. You see how I've made like sort of a ridge. Now, right in the center here, you know that part, it looks like the lip is kind of split a little bit. Again, I'll take my little wooden tool and I'm going to sort of just kind of make a little bit of an indentation in there. I'm going to smoothen that out with my finger, but it sort of divides that in half a little bit. I'm going to kind of press it in a little bit so it smooths out just. Doesn't look like it was just a piece of wood that was pressed into there. And what I'm going to do now, I've got my lower lip. I don't want to mess, the lower part of my upper lip. I've got that split over here. And I really don't want to mess with that stuff. I want to keep it exactly like it is. But here on the top part, this part that's going to be connected up here onto what will be ultimately the cheeks and the nose, I want to kind of thin it out just a little bit. So I'm just going to pinch the top of this a little bit and just thin it out a little bit. So I've got my lip, my upper lip, got my little split in the lip right there. I've got my little ridge, and that little bump right there is the center of the lip, and sort of fitting in right now. I can take a look at it from the side. I mean, it looks a little bit like an alien, looks like a little, almost like some sort of lizard alien or duck. That's fine right now, but I'm going to kind of place it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press down just a little bit in the corners right over here, about the width, a little bit wider than the nickel, the original shape is over there, and that'll be my corners of the mouth. The top part over here that I made thin, I'm going to carefully try to blend that into the sort of area underneath the eye. And the careful part here is that you really don't want to mess with the finished work that you already did. And you really, you know, if you're up to this part, I would hope that you did a decent job on the eyes. This is not the time to kind of haphazardly, accidentally just mush them and smash them. You're just really working out. There's going to be a big sort of cavity under the eyes. We're going to fill that in later with cheeks. So, you know, you do want, I always like to have things smoothed out and everything's sort of connected over there. But we don't have to have it exactly perfect, because we are going to build up the area right where my fingers are right now. You see, I really didn't affect that area, and it's really right on top of the little mark that I made. Now, as for this outside part, we're not going to have the mouth go all the way off over there. That looks a little weird, but for right now, I'm just going to meld, mush the ends of that clay into the rest of the top of my head, so it's all like one piece over here. So you can see, again, I spaced this out with the coins, made my mark, I sort of developed my piece, made it sort of ridged, made my lip sort of shape, realizing that it's probably going to stop about here and here, and now's the time for me to start working on that lower lip. One of the things I might want to do first, though, is kind of build this chin up, because if you did it like me, at this point we're kind of running out of real estate over here, meaning that we're almost out of space at the bottom of the face, which is totally fine. So what I'm going to do is I just took one strip of clay, okay, one big strip of clay. I'm mushing it down, or scrap piece, I'm mushing it down into a little ball. Just kind of make it a little football shaped almost. It doesn't have to be a meatball, it can be a little like a bit of a football. And we're just going to try to build on to the bottom this a little bit and add a little bit of material here just for the chin. A lot of this could get covered up with some of the lip, and we could kind of build off of that in a little while too. And the chin is something that we can always adjust and change. You can make them smaller, you can make them bigger. Again, I'm going for that sort of infant kind of proportions to the face, so my chin will probably be pretty small and it's not going to stick out too much. So it almost looks like a baby chin underneath this kind of thing. Again, you're looking at something that looks pretty alien right now, but once we get the other lip on there and we get the nose on there, you're going to start to see what looks a little bit more like a face. But I've added that little extra bump. Again, it was only about the same amount of clay we used on the original practice of the eyes. And just like everything else, we want to try to make sure that we're centered and symmetrical. That's the big trick of all this thing. Keep everything centered and symmetrical. Now I'm going to start working on that lower lip. Okay? And again, we're going to take like one piece of clay. I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm just going to try to roll it into sort of a sausage. Basically, we want a piece to be able to start to work with that's a little bit bigger than just a little sort of extruded roll of clay. So if you look at how thick this is, you see that the one that I'm rolling out, I'm trying to make it a little thicker. And if when you're rolling it out, if it gets too thin, just fold it back in half and just sort of mush it together and keep rolling it until you get one nice looking even cylinder type shape. And again, smooth that out, get rid of any cracks and crevices. A little bit thicker. I can kind of bunch it up a little bit with my fingers over here. But the important part is that we want it to be nice and smooth, and we don't want any of these little folds or creases like you see on this end, because this is going to be the basis for my lower lip. And we want the lower lip to be a little bit thicker, obviously, than the upper lip. And we're going to start by kind of putting that one here. I'm going to get a feel for how thick it should be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to only start rolling this with my fingers. I'm trying to make the edges a little bit smaller. All right, so it's going to be kind of like I don't know how to describe it, like a fish, where the belly of this fish is a little bit wider, but those edges starting to get a little thinner. You can see the shape. Almost think of it almost like a Jolly Rancher candy in a little wrapper. The middle of it's nice and big, and the edges are kind of getting a little thin. I'm going to kind of see what that looks like when I press it into there. And what I'm doing is I'm going to press in with my thumbs on the sides of it, kind of press it up into that upper lip. And this is all a matter of aesthetics. You can decide to make them a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner. Right now you got like the creature from the Black Lagoon kind of looking alien kind of thing, but you could see my little lower lip and how it sort of melds into the upper lip. And again, I'm leaving the belly of this thing, the middle of this thick, and I'm sort of pressing sides into it, so it has this sort of smush into it. Now this is where we want to kind of just blend the edges of that together. We don't want to go too crazy over here. We want to blend it symmetrically, but we don't want to make the mouth too tiny, and we don't want to kind of overwork this area. So what I'm doing is, you can see I'm sort of just pushing the rest of that in, and again, a lot of that stuff's going to get sort of fixed as far as how it looks when we add cheeks to this. But right now what I want to do is I just kind of want to push that stuff in. You can see how that looks right now. Got my little mouth going. And now I really want to kind of make this lower lip, the bottom of this, really connect to my chin. So I don't want to thin this thing out too much, but I do want to start blending this particular area into it. And again, be careful that you don't take down too much of your material as far as the lip goes. And you know what, if you feel like you're just not able to get in there, don't be afraid to just add a little bit more clay to it. You can always take a little tiny piece, roll out another little piece. And sort of use it to kind of like build up the area. For me, I think I have just enough over here, and I can always add more to my chin after the fact, but I'm gonna carefully. And just know at this point, we're not close to done with the face. We still have a lot more to build up on, and we can make that chin bigger. We're going to make the cheeks bigger. We're obviously going to add a nose to it. But at this point, what we want to try to do is we want to have that eyes and mouth laid out. And these eyes and those lips are pretty much finished. All right, areas around this part of the face we'll work on. And we can adjust and change, but really those pieces are going to be like done. So we really want to be careful when you're not working on this and you're putting it away, that we're not mushing and screwing up the hard work that we've done already. You can see what it looks like from the profile. Obviously I don't have the nose yet. I'm going to add that later on. I've got my little mouth, the lips are over there, and the chin sort of pushes back a little bit. Again, for an infant that will probably work. These areas over here, we'll fluff them out once we start working on the nose, which will probably be on Monday. And then once we get the nose on, it's really just going to be about fine-tuning. One of the recommendations I give you guys is that, hey, listen, I'm going to have probably 2 more long-form videos as far as working on this project, which will be like Monday and Tuesday. And then really you have tomorrow to work on it. You have the rest of next week to work on it. And then you have a few days the following week. What I would tell you is if yours is not looking up to par and you're not feeling it, or it doesn't look right, or it looks pretty smushed, don't be afraid to peel this all off and just start fresh. I don't think it's a ton of time that you need on it, and I want you to make something that you're proud of and that looks good, since we're actually getting an opportunity to do some real sculpting now. And once again, for those of you who are doing this, we are going to finish this face. That'll be our final project. For those of you who are doing papers, you'll have 1 more paper due next week, and that will be the final paper. And then again, everybody will have the last 4 days of this course to sort of play catch up if they need it. And again, for those of you who have been doing what you need to do and are all caught up, you're not going to need to worry. You'll have a few days off to think about your life or play video games or whatever it is that you want to do. So that is the mouth. Okay, and I hope you enjoyed today's video.